The third mistake was made by the British. They saw Eisenhower as a fairly passive figure who would go along with British policy. And there was a caricature of him at that time in Britain, but also amongst some Americans, that he was a lazy president who spent more time on the golf course than in his office. And on one of Eisenhower's letters, Eden said, "The only thing that's true to Ike is his signature, and that's illegible." And Churchill told his doctor, "The president is no more than a ventriloquist's doll." And in addition, with an election due in November, the British hoped he would not go against Israel, who were their allies here, because of the importance of the Jewish vote in New York, which was then a swing state. But in fact, Eisenhower was in full control of American foreign policy, and Dulles was his agent. And most important of all, contrary to public perceptions which Eisenhower encouraged so as to be seen as a constitutional monarch above the battle and retain his popularity, Eisenhower was a strong president with strong views on foreign policy. Far from being a golf-playing amateur, he had, from his wartime experiences and his post-war leadership in NATO, vast, indeed unrivaled experience of foreign policy. He knew at first hand many of the world's political leaders and the problems involved. And contrary to the sunny image which he projected, he had a furious temper, and as we shall see, he became very angry when his views were ignored. And the British were to pay a very high price for underestimating Eisenhower. In addition, Eisenhower did not need the Jewish vote, because at that time Republican support lay primarily in upstate New York and not in the cities where the Jewish vote was strong. And in any case, at that time, most Jews voted Democrat and were not intending to support Eisenhower, even if he were to show himself more sympathetic to Israel than in fact he was. Now, the fourth mistake was made by both sides. The British Chancellor, Harold Macmillan, met Eisenhower in September in Washington for half an hour. They'd been colleagues during the war in North Africa. And Macmillan was the only senior politician to meet Eisenhower during the crisis. Now, remarkably, during that half hour, Suez was not raised. And this silence was misinterpreted on both sides. Eisenhower made the mistake of not repeating the warnings he'd given to Anthony Eden because he thought Macmillan was an equivalent to the American Secretary of the Treasury or a continental finance minister, someone dealing primarily with technical issues concerning money. In fact, Macmillan was the second man in the government, deeply involved in Suez, the first to suggest that Britain work with the Israelis to defeat Nasser, pressing Eden to take forcible action and threatening to resign from the government if Eden didn't. And during the Suez Crisis, he was in regular communication with Churchill, whose prestige, of course, was still enormous, and both were agreed that Nasser must be confronted. Macmillan was prepared to lead a revolt from the right against Eden, which would threaten Eden's premiership. In fact, therefore, Macmillan was the key to Britain's Suez policy. Eisenhower did not realise this, an error on his part. But Macmillan made the more serious error. He believed that Eisenhower's silence indicated consent. He told the cabinet, and I quote, "Ike will lie doggo." And that was wishful thinking. He made a further mistake. He failed to pass on to his Prime Minister a warning given by his permanent Secretary at the Treasury that Sterling would not be able to stand the strain of a military campaign without American help. On the 7th of September, Macmillan was told of the vital necessity, and I quote, "from the point of view of the currency and our economy, of ensuring that we do not go it alone and that we have maximum American support." At that time, the pound was not floating as it is now, but on a fixed exchange rate regime, and Britain would want to avoid what it would regard as a humiliation of a devaluation of the pound. And Macmillan simply commented on that Treasury memo, "Yes, this is just the trouble. The Americans are being very difficult." But he did not tell his Prime Minister of it.